my presentation is not going to have anything to do with Thoughtexchange. I'm serious. It has nothing to do with Thoughtexchange. I received an email last week, which I didn't read, which gave the directions to what I was supposed to do. It was from Aaron. I've already apologized to Aaron for not reading the email. And basically what I did was I put together a presentation of what I thought was a really good idea. But you may not like it if you were expecting something about Thoughtexchange. Start that timer. So what the title is Moments of Impact. What I found is that in life, there are lots of moments of impact, but only really one or two that are the moments of impact. So the one thing that superintendents are really good at is talking about themselves. So that's what this is. This is a story about me and the moments of impact. It's really my favorite story because it's about me. And you'll understand it as we go through this. And hopefully by the end of it, what we'll do is get you to think, what are those moments of impact in your life? Because they really are important. So 5 good minutes, that's the only thing here that doesn't have a moment of impact. It's my favorite show, pardon the interruption. They do a thing on it called 5 good minutes, and these are going to be 5 mediocre minutes. Who is this guy? That's not me. There's another guy, George Clooney, that I look more alike. Last night at the restaurant, somebody thought that George Clooney was there, and I had to explain to them that it wasn't. So actually, I'm this guy. I'm both that guy and that guy over there. So my life has been filled with lots of different things that have gone on, but I don't think any of it was ever based on luck. 1975, I graduated from high school. Remember, this is about me. And then in 1975, lots of other things happened, like the Farrah Fawcett poster that those of us all know, and then other things too, like Microsoft started, but there were all kinds of things in 1975. The other thing that happened in 1975, that's my father. He was diagnosed with cancer in 1975. Moment of impact, because I started college that fall. Moment of impact. Challenges, no question, challenges. I was going to be an accountant. That's what Chuck was going to be. I decided I was going to be an accountant. I'm really good at numbers. People can tell me numbers, and I can mostly memorize them in my head until Kevin McGowan goes on and on and on, and then I start daydreaming. So, I was born in 1975. Okay. Wait, I want those 10 seconds back. I'm about to talk about that period in your life. So, so all of a sudden, the issue of my father having cancer and dying, that impacted my college. And one day, I decided I needed to get some help. And I went to the office in the college where I could get some help, and they had a sign up that said they were closed. I walked out, never to return. 105 credits, and I was a solid C student. Oh, I have to thank Kelly Hoke from Dundee, superintendent. She's the one that gave me the idea for Moment of Impact. Then there was this other person, Martha Clark. Some of you know her, Martha Clark Dedrick. Moment of Impact. She said to me, pull yourself together, or else there won't be Martha and Chuck. So I did. I pulled myself together, and I became a teacher. Moment of impact. There I am with an incredible class. And because of that moment of impact, we went on to wear really weird white clothing with really black hair, but moment of impact. But the biggest moment of impact from all of that, the biggest moment of impact, I was going to be an accountant. I walked out of college because of the stress and the pressure of what was going on in my life and my family. I met somebody who told me to get my act together. I did. I became a teacher. The greatest moment of impact, though, my wife and I were at a restaurant one night. Waiter came over and said, person at that table paid your bill. And I walked over and I said, hi, I'm Chuck Dedrick, and he said, you were my teacher. he told me his name. I remembered the name. He said, in this year, I was having trouble at home. You listened to me. You stayed after school. You stopped. You listened. You took care of me when nobody else was taking care of me. And all of a sudden, I thought back to that time in college when I walked out the door and nobody took care of me. That day, not the marriage, not the day I walked out of college, not the day I became a teacher, not the day I graduated from college. The day that the greatest moment of impact was the day that that young man bought me dinner. And you know the amazing thing? I didn't remember doing it. What he bought me dinner for, I didn't remember. But that's what being a teacher is all about. That's what being a great educator is about. Doing the right things for kids and making sure that they're taken care of. So, you know, what I'd like you to do, think about your moment of impact and make sure every day, for all the good things that you've got, think about that moment of impact and how it led you to where you are today. I guarantee you'll be happy for doing that. Thank you to Thoughtexchange for this opportunity. Awesome. Thank you.
Woo. Chuck, bringing down the house. Thank you for that. Rita, do you want to follow that? Rita, up to the front, please. Oh, perfect. We don't want to lose any more time. There we go.
Awesome. Oh, we get to follow that. Yeah.
I wasn't paying any attention to him, so I sorry.
I would like to introduce you all, if you do not already know, Jason Andrews. And I love Jason. He is authentic, real, and definitely leads from the heart. I've had an opportunity to spend time with you when times were tough. And I saw you show up as an amazing leader and an amazing person when I'm sure part of you wanted to just be home with your family. I've got a chance to listen to your wisdom on how you lead your teams and how you see your community coming together. And every time I'm with you, I am inspired. Plus, you make me laugh.
Thank you so much.
And you roast Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is a real honor to be here, and it was great to have Chuck open for me. I like to have an opener. I think that's important. And my little friend Kevin, isn't he adorable? You know, it was great that Gap Kids Outlet had their spring suits out in time for him to be here, and his adorable little shoes too. So in Windsor we wear ties. Brighton, they're a little more evolved. I was going to loan him a tie today, but it would have dragged on the floor. So I'm just glad that he was able to do his filibuster this morning, and I'll try to share with you my thoughts this afternoon. So, you know, we've talked a lot this morning about this idea of being overwhelmed, that we've got all of these things as leaders and we're so busy doing those things. And I started in this position 14 years ago. And in 1975, by the way, that was a moment for me. I was born in 1975. So I was this new superintendent at 30, and I was spending all of my time putting out fires. And there were plenty to put out. And so really, I wasn't feeling as though I was doing a whole lot of the everything I needed to do other than running around. And what I found over time is this real idea of clarity preceding competence, but being clear about what? Not which fires to put out, not which things to do, but rather getting some clarity with kind of the mission, vision, values, and goals. And I will tell you, when I used to hear people talk about things like mission and vision, I would roll my eyes and tune out and say, so mission statements. those things on the wall. Well, mission, not necessarily mission statement, the core purpose of why we exist and getting clarity about that core purpose is so incredibly important. And mission, not to be confused with vision, and people use them synonymously, and they are two very different things. But this aspirational, what do we want to build together? So why do we exist? What do we want to build? What do we believe? But more importantly, beyond our beliefs, how will we behave in order to meet that vision, to fulfill that mission? And then finally, how will we mark our progress with our goals? When we started to get clear about this work, that's when we stopped so much of the putting out fires and really started to build a program for our kids, for my own and for others. And so really this idea of starting with the why is so important, because we have so much of the what we do and how we do it. I think that's what we spend most of our times in schools and in other organizations talking about. We will spend all of our time on that what and how, but if we're not clear about the why, the purpose, then we'll really never get to the important work. We will just continue to fill our days, fill our plates with all of these other things. And so this idea of starting with our why and getting to our core purpose is something that was liberating for me. And part of it was this idea, so when we start thinking about core purpose and mission, is it my mission as the superintendent? Is it my board's mission? Is it our leadership team's mission? How do we get to that? And this is really where Thought Exchange has been so important, is getting to this idea of shared mission, shared vision, shared values, and shared goals. Because I think, as was stated this morning, otherwise a group of people in the room that often is trying to guess what the leader is thinking and potentially say it first so that they really feel part of that organization isn't going to get us where we want to go. And so really using this idea, how do we get everyone in the same direction? It's using a tool like Thought Exchange to have this safe place to listen to all voices. And getting voices in the room is so important, because so often the voice we listen to is our own voice. And listening is not so common. Waiting our turn to hear our voice again in a polite, collegial manner is really what we get to. We're not co-laboring. We're waiting patiently to say our thoughts again. And so how do we get past that and so that the work becomes meaningful? Well, we have to really create deliberate time and space. We had a conversation earlier about time. We don't find time, we make time. And we make time based on those priorities. But without that clarity of mission, vision, values, and goals, then you may be making time for things that aren't getting you there. And so for us, we were able to, we've been working with Thought Exchange for a long time now, really get to a meaningful mission statement that was reflective of our mission. And this idea of ensuring that each learner is future ready. And for us, this allowed us to be a gatekeeper, to make sure that our focus was remaining clear to everyone, that we could communicate that clearly and also could make some decisions. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time on in our district, and our staff rolls their eyes every time I say it, is it cute or does it count? And so by being clear about that core purpose, being clear about that vision, what do we want to build, being clear about our values and our goals, we're able to be gatekeepers as leaders to say, is this a detour? Or is this something that's going to get us to where we want to go? If it's cute and we're doing it for the sake of being cute, that's fine, but let's call it that. Let's not pretend that those things that are simply done in schools because they're cute are treated in the same way that things that are counting toward ensuring that each learner is future ready. That clarity among our whole organization with this shared mission has allowed us to do great things for kids. and it's just an incredible tool for us. And that power of focus for us has been in part fueled by Thoughtexchange, to be able to get all of those voices in the room, to be able to get ownership, and really get to the point where we're getting closer and closer every day to fulfilling that mission. Thank you so very much, and I will enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Jason. Kyle? It's not Rita. Keep me on my toes.
Changing up for the last one. I have, excuse me, like I said, I did not, I changed up for meetings. Also not walking Laura up here. I'm going to call Laura Feijoo up. Laura is the, so I actually asked Laura, you know, how should I introduce you? And she said, had nothing to say, because Laura's the kind of person that doesn't like to talk about herself. But Laura is the Senior Superintendent for Policy and Labor and Policy for the New York City Department of Education, and is a very very powerful leader, a very quiet and humble, but is someone that when she speaks, people listen, because she has the experience and the wisdom. And for those who know her, you can attest to that. And also the kind of person who goes out of her way to help you. I can attest that myself as well. So I'm not going to stand for much longer. I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
Thank you. So hard to go last, maybe easy, we'll see. I also maybe didn't read carefully or follow the directions, but the moral purpose of what I'm going to talk about will show that leads to some of the conversations you've heard today. So that's why I think maybe I should have went first. So I became a superintendent in 2003. I'm not going to share what year I was born, but I became a superintendent in 2003 at a time when everything was being shook up in New York City. They got rid of school boards, very not popular decision. Mayoral control started. That top headline, The Brief Life and Impending Death of a Board of Education, is how I got assigned to a school district to be a superintendent. And the picture to the left is not the actual person, so I took out some of the names, some people may know the stories, is an image of what everybody thought the superintendent before me could do. He could totally walk on water. He was amazing. Everything that embodied the district was what he was. He was totally, did what he did, could get away with everything. Everyone loved him. He was a fantastic guy. I am not disparaging him at all, but he had that image and impression in the school district. And so from the first day I started, when I wanted to get to know everyone and talk to everyone and find out, you know, my 100-day plan, who I was going to talk to, who I was going to meet with, who I was going to talk about, was a time of a thing called a BlackBerry. We actually call them blueberries in 2003 because they were blue. And we all had one of those, and response time was, they'd give you 5 minutes to respond to these emails they were sending you, or they'd call you to make sure you saw the email so that you could answer it right away. They didn't want to talk to you on the phone about it. They just wanted to point out that you hadn't answered your email. And so I would go to these sessions and I would be, you know, focused on what people are saying and what people are thinking. And I had a particular parent who was constantly in every audience, in every group, in every conversation, doing exactly this. I cut out the name of the person who said it, yelling and screaming for months and months and months, like foaming at the mouth, every time I would step out into an audience, because of course I was replacing the man who they appreciated and respected in the school district. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about how I can capture everyone's thoughts and everyone's opinion and really, really listen to people at the time to make sure I understood what the district was about. I will tell you the good news that after about 3 years, I did regain and capture their trust, and this person, Nancy, and some other people today would stand up and be a reference for me because it took a really long time to build that trust and that conversation. And all you can do at the time was really do it one by one, meeting by meeting, session by session. And so what I thought of in reflection on this is that a lot of times we're spending most of our time with the people who talk the loudest, yell the most, show up the most to the conversation, want to influence the decisions, who speak first in every room, and we don't get a chance to hear from the people who can't get there, the families that could not come to meetings because they were working, the ability for people to participate in the kinds of forums that we typically have either during the school day or in the evening, right after school or at 6 o'clock. And those are times for families to do other things where they couldn't really be a part of the conversation. I do think listening and believing in what people have to say is super important. So I put the cell phone there too because at one moment in time, I was on my BlackBerry at the time in front at a school board meeting. I was sitting at the school board meeting, I was in the front, everyone was talking, the thing was buzzing off the hook. I knew it must have been an emergency. I, of course, picked it up, answered it, and that's when the photo was taken of me on my cell phone at a school board meeting. Terrible. But I realized that we weren't doing enough to really listen to people and show that we were listening. So this is sort of a precursor to what could have been a thought exchange moment in terms of being an active listener and participant. So obviously these are all things you heard this morning in everyone's presentation. We should really care about what everyone's thinking. We find ourselves too many times not listening to the people with the loudest voices because they say it all the time, or not getting an opportunity to hear from the people who can't get into the conversation. To build the trust in relationships, sometimes it takes a really long time to get there. You only know what you know, so finding the space and the time to create the questions that you want to ask, and I know that's something your team helps a lot with. What is the actual question you're trying to ask and think about in order to get the kind of information you want that could help drive the conversation at the top? The multiple perspectives. If you don't look for it, you can't ask for it. I find a lot of times going into a school or having a meeting with people, you just being in the room changes the conversation. People sometimes don't want to step up and say things they would normally say, and providing opportunities for people to be able to do that in a way that makes more sense, where they're either anonymous or regionally identified so they can have a voice in the process. If they're saying it and you're not hearing it, they're still saying it about you. And so the opportunities to be able to hear from people in a thought exchange is a way in which you can hear from people that normally would not say out loud because it would go against the grain of what other people were thinking. So I have this thing about insider and outsider. So oftentimes as a superintendent or anyone outside the school, you can't possibly know what the people inside the school are thinking each and every day. And when you go in and you try to have the conversation, it's very difficult to extrapolate the information that you want because it's a quick visit, or people don't want to talk against the other people that are in the room. So it's another way to think about your context in terms of once you go into a conversation, is it an authentic conversation because you're a part of it? So these are things that I think about in terms of connecting with people and talking. I try very hard a lot of times to make sure that I'm the last one to speak. Every time people are having a conversation, you have the answer, you jot it down, you think about it, you use some of the strategies not to influence the dialogue and the conversation, circling back and asking probing questions. I always try to summarize at the end that I was listening by saying, this is what I heard you say, this is what I want back from you. And I think the thought exchange is an opportunity to have that authentic dialogue throughout a group of people or answering a particular question. And it gives you feedback to be able to start the dialogue in a meeting or time. to start the conversation in a meeting, because this is what comes through. There's just one example I wanted to give. I participated in a thought exchange as a parent. I did. There was a thought exchange out there. I participated it as a parent. And it was surprising to me how many people participated in the topic. It was an important topic about merging two schools. It was two separate schools, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grades. They were thinking about doing 2 grades in one school and 2 grades in another school. Very controversial topic. The amount of participation and conversation, what came from it is what were people thinking, and generating ideas that could help support the next phase of what could happen in those middle schools. So it was, as a user, and you had an experience today, you were able to take away as much as the person posing the question. So I appreciate having my 5 minutes, and thank you.
So what I heard you say, and in summary, so what we're going to do next is a quick exchange. We'll try to do that exchange in about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Then we'll bring the 3 inspirational speakers back to the panel. This is working? Good, good. Okay. QR code. Go into 5 minutes of fame. We kind of... Number 2 in the afternoon, yes. Oh, we should get... the code number is, we will... Do the QR code work for you? Try that. Anybody have any challenges? Hands up. Come to you. All good? I think the live feed is over. Is it?
We got it rolling in the back.
Oh, we do? All right. Did you want the mic? So to recap, or thoughts do you have of the 3 presenters of 5 minutes of fame that you just saw? And then we'll bring Matt Desbrise to moderate. Oh, nice. There we go. So to recap, the challenge is to put 1 or 2 thoughts in and rate as many thoughts as you can in the next 90 seconds.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get rolling. Try to keep us on time here. The first thought, I'm going to pass it over to Jason, actually, just because this is probably the one you're on this panel you contend with the most. How have you navigated the negativity that creeps into social media that may also find its way into a thought exchange?
So I think that there goes to some vulnerability, and I think when you talk with superintendents and leaders that are there are wide-ranging views about social media, in my mind, that's a place to be really proactive. And here's the reality is those things are being said, those negative comments are being said, whether we are on social media or not. They're out there. So I'd rather be in that sandbox. And what I can tell you is we have a tremendous presence on social media. We are cranking things out all the time. And I think it's also like, if we were to look, it's probably 500, maybe more, positive comments to every one that might even be remotely negative. But what we want to do, if there's one negative comment, let's just throw the whole thing out. Because someone can't possibly say something negative about the district or me. You know, and some of those things, I think you just have to, if you're doing the right thing, and you just kind of have to take that. There's in my small community, and again, I've been in the same district for a long, long time, someone had a billboard professionally made on a main street, thoroughfare through one of our towns that says, check out the school superintendent's contract and salary with a website.
And that cost me a lot of money.
I know. What's interesting, I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. He's never been at a meeting. Doesn't have kids in school. There's no anything other than that thought is in his mind where he's willing to pay money to have that there. We've had a lot of fun with it. But the reality is on social media, it's out there. So the negativity, I don't think you can be afraid of the negativity. And in Thought Exchange, particularly with the moderation, et cetera, one of the great parts is the starring, that's not a top thought. If the negative thought was a top thought, I'd be concerned. If that was what was resonating with everyone, I'd be concerned. There's a place that in a safe way, people can say, no, I don't agree with that thought. They're not going to call somebody out on the negative thought on social media, but the whole mechanism behind Thought Exchange allows that. So I think we have to get comfortable with some of that. If we're not open to criticism, then we're probably not doing great things for kids.
Do you want to add to that, Laura, just on the general social media and messaging around that?
So I agree with Jason. If people are saying it, even if it's one person saying it, you have to hear it, and it has to go into your thoughts. In the school district I live in, there is constantly conversations that are in circles about things that you can't even respond to. When you have something like this with a thought exchange, you'll know what people are saying, even if they're in a minority, and it gives you the impetus at the next conversation to start with that and say, I know some people are thinking this. I know it's not a majority, but here's why this might not be the road to go down. It gives you the opportunity to respond to anonymous people in ways that at least validate that you've heard them, but still move forward with what the majority and what the board and the superintendent wants to go on. And I think that's important to be heard.
So I need to add to that, just briefly. I don't pay attention to comments on social media generally. We have, at the New York State Council of School Superintendents, we have a lot of trolls who troll Facebook and Twitter and make nasty comments about the elite public education establishment. And, you know, they're trolling and having a great time. On the other hand, on Thought Exchange, people pay attention to those things because it is done in such a way so that the cream rises to the top. If you're paying attention to the comments on Facebook, you probably need to readjust your time that you're spending doing that, If you're paying attention to the comments on Thought Exchange, you've got the right idea.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm going to jump as thought here, and thought exchange be thought exchange. But beyond that, you've all had to overcome some sort of a fear when you hear the naked truth from your constituents, whatever that quote naked truth is. How did that feel?
So I think so I think the idea of getting in front of people and having people talk at you about things that are very personal are difficult. I think that in my story, the moment that I realized I didn't look like I was paying attention to people, I actually pride myself on paying attention and listening to people's stories. I think one of the greatest attributes I have is to listen to people's stories and then help them solve their problem, not using a strategy that I have, but strategies that they have. But when you're either on your phone or you're doing things that make people not realize how intently you're listening, you lose their faith that you're really listening. And so that moment with me and a picture of the cell phone, when I pride myself on really paying attention, just because I could do 5 things at once doesn't mean the people looking at me think I could do 5 things at once. And so you have to show that you're listening in ways that maybe are not natural to do because we always have something buzzing or thinking about, but you want to make sure. And that was the moment when I realized that maybe I wasn't really paying attention or make people understand how important it was for me to pay attention.
I haven't overcome that fear. It's true. I haven't overcome that fear. And I appreciate hearing the naked truth, but I still haven't overcome the fear. If anybody has a secret pill I can swallow on that, I'd appreciate it. But I still think having a fear of that isn't all bad either.
Yeah, so I think people like to say they enjoy feedback, but what people really enjoy is praise. And that's a good point. And so it's true. And there have been a couple of moments, one professionally, one personally, where I got some feedback that didn't feel real good. Because, and I think it's sort of to Laura's point, some of the things I pride myself in that I believe are strengths, to get the feedback that it was not in someone else's eyes was painful. One, our administrative team and we have this really close-knit group. Everyone gets along very well, and I was hearing that one of our administrators, felt as though he was being tormented by the group. And so some of the light humor, etc., was not being received in that way. And that I was right in the thick of it. So I got that feedback. I heard that. I had a conversation, and I said, "Boy, help me to understand this." And I'm like highly offended. So I can't think of a time that's happened. He said, "Well, you've actually never said anything, but that's the problem." And so my silence meant consent. And so that was one of those gut punches for me, where I was like, yeah, so I'm, one, not reading the room well, and 2, not taking responsibility for my team. And 3, this was probably the most hurtful part of it, because this is someone that I would have described myself as being close with. He didn't come to me with that. So I had to really take a close look in the mirror and say, so how am I conducting myself? Is this what I view as a great strength really a great strength? And that it was painful. The second was from my wife, who said, basically, put your phone away. And again, I pride myself in being very present. But I'm hanging on every word. And giving myself more credit than, no, absolutely I'm listening. Of course I'm listening to you. Yeah, not really. And having to also recognize that if my phone was in my pocket, that was enough for me to not be present. And that, in fact, the message that I was sending to someone who I love a great deal was that I didn't value them, I didn't value our limited time together, the great sacrifices that she makes for my chosen career, etc., and I was communicating in that way. So those were two examples where the naked truth hurt pretty badly, and was also an opportunity for me to look in the mirror and grow as a person.
Awesome. Okay, so listening to the group, knowing what everybody agrees on, I just want to show you that so that we can get to the last part to make sure that everybody's getting what they need out of this. We can measure how people are starring in this exchange, so we know that there's two groups in this case. There's 13 people that align around certain stuff. There's 3 people that don't agree with that group. And here's what they agree and disagree on. Group A is fairly agreeable, Group B is not, but nonetheless, there's a common group here who thinks that these things are really important that we talk about. So the only, so some praise around love the quote that if it's cute, it doesn't count. The one thing we haven't talked about, and I'm going to ask for rapid fire, 30 seconds each. How do you measure engagement initiatives? How do you know that they're working?
So not based on participation. So we try to measure everything through the lens of student learning. So if our student learning is improving, that's how we measure that. It's based on the quality. Sometimes it can be tempting to say we want to look at the number of participants, the number of stars, some of the climate surveys, all of those averages. What we really look at is there quality information, quality input, quality conversation that helps us to enhance student learning. So that's always our lens.
I would say if it's related to like student engagement, actually asking students, and we saw some good examples of that this morning using Thoughtexchange, or not walking out of an opportunity to talk to a group of kids without really thinking through whether they feel they're engaged in the process of learning. So not just what the outcomes are, but what is the process that they're taking away with them that is going to transform them when they get to college. As it relates to parents and community members, I like to think about how much comes out of the engagement process that's new and different that you didn't know. So we can probably guesstimate, figure out a lot of things that people are thinking. 1, they tell us, 2, they write us, 3, they complain about it. But the things that come out of that, so we know some of this stuff, but the ideas in reading through all of the comments, so there's phases of this, like looking at the detailed comments. What are the new ideas coming out? People have really great ideas, and if you believe that families know what they want for kids, and kids know what they want for themselves, and teachers know what's best for kids, those answers are somewhere there. And so you just got to keep raising up and looking at the high points, but then digging down into the smaller comments to figure out where you can extrapolate an answer to something that maybe only one person said that's going to reform a lot of the things you're doing. So.
At the Council of School Superintendents, there's really short-term and long-term. Short-term, for example, there are things at this year's conference in September. We have gone to one keynote because we have listened to our engagement activities with our members. And we're going to have superintendents similar to the 5-minute thing, but we're going to be doing 10 minutes because it's clear, we need 10 minutes. So, yep, except for Kevin, who gets an hour. You really do, you get an hour. But so short-term things like that, we measure the engagement with our members, but then there's also long-term things that we're looking at and tracking too. One of the statistics that I love to throw around, 76% of the employees in New York State schools are women, yet only about 30% of the superintendents are women. So we're leaving a lot of potential leaders behind. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at with our snapshot that Bob Ike is in charge of this year is have we shaken that tree at all? And got more women to become superintendent. And then 5 years from now is going to be the real key date. So some things short, some things long.
Thank you, guys. I hope this has been a moment of impact today for you. I want to thank the three members of our panel, and we'll carry on with the next set of the agenda.
Thank you.